Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Today is Monday, May 3rd, 2021. Life takes us to many different places. And nobody knows what, when, where, and how. And we don't know what God has planned. And looking back into the events that unfolded on Friday, the tragic events on Mount Meron, on such a special, joyous day, we are not here to explain or to articulate, or we are not God's lawyers. We don't know God's thoughts, and we are mortal beings and continue to move along with belief and faith in God and prayers for those that were injured and asking God to accept our mercy, forgiveness, so that such events never happen again. But it gives us time to reflect. It gives us time to wonder. And especially as we do always reflect by looking at this week's Torah reading, by asking ourselves, what do we value? What is considered important? How do we make use of everything that God gives us? How to appreciate the godly given gifts that we have, that God gives us in this world. There's a story told that once the previous Chabad Rebbe was given his first allowance, and somebody asked him, "What are you going to buy with the money?" And he said, "I give you a choice. You can buy this sefer, this holy book, or a watch. Which one will you buy?" The previous Rebbe looks at the fellow and says, "I'm going to buy the watch, because the watch is going to remind me not to waste my time to learn the book." They used to say about a great scholar, they asked him, "How did you become so wise? How did you learn all this that you know?" He said, "In 15 minutes. So they looked at him, "What? 15 minutes? How did you learn all that in 15 minutes? He says, 15 minutes waiting for the train, 15 minutes waiting in line, 15 minutes waiting for the person. Utilizing every 15 minutes gave me the ability to accumulate the knowledge that I have." The most wasted commodity that we are all responsible for is time. We don't realize the value of time until we don't have the time. Like we don't realize the value of many things until we don't have them. We are now in a period of it's called counting the Omer. And as I mentioned many times, Chassidim used to say it's not just about counting, but it's making everything count. In this week's Torah reading is the 32nd Torah reading of the Torah. 32 means heart. It tells us about three primary mitzvot, three primary commandments. Number one, the sabbatical year, the Jubilee year, and the prohibition of charging interest. And the very fact that these three commandments are mentioned in this week's Torah reading means that they have an intrinsic connection between the three of them. The sabbatical year was the mitzvah that every seventh year, in fact, next year is going to be a sabbatical year. Every seventh year, the farmer was not allowed to work in his land, and the fruit was for all to enjoy. The farmer, like anybody else, was able to enjoy the fruit of his land, but he had no preference or no rights more than anybody else. And he was not allowed to work with the land. He was not allowed to utilize the land. It was just there. Let it sit. The second commandment was the Jubilee year, which every 7 Shemitas, every 7 sabbatical years, there was a 50th year, which was the Jubilee year, where then any servant or any person which was working for somebody went free. Any land that somebody purchased went back to its original owner. So you never actually bought land in the land of Israel. You leased the land for a certain amount of years until the Jubilee year, as well as you didn't work with the land. What does God tell us by the Jubilee year and by the sabbatical year? One may ask, how is it possible for me to survive if I'm not going to work with the land? How am I going to be able to make a living? So God says, this is where you see God's blessing. But then take it to the next mitzvah, which is the prohibition of charging another Jew interest. When one loans a Jew money, he is not allowed to pay interest, and he's not allowed to charge interest. At first glance, all of these commandments have one common denominator. They all depend on the blessing of God. That means not working in the field of the sabbatical year, not working in the field in the Jubilee year, and not charging interest from another Jew are all telling you that the reason why you own something, the reason why you have the ability to loan somebody money, why you own a field, why you own a slave, whatever it may be, was because God gave you that blessing. And every so often you need that reminder to remind you it's not your own accomplishments, it's God's blessing in everything you do. But there's even a deeper message. A deeper message which teaches us the importance and the value of everything that's in this world. When God created the universe, God begins with saying, Bereshis bara Elokim, in the beginning God created the heaven and earth. But God begins the word in the beginning. Meaning the world is here, and now we need to infuse it with godliness. The first mitzvah given to the Jewish people was the mitzvah concerning the new moon, the calendar, the dates, the time. The obligation to the Jew to sanctify the time and make it a holy time and a holy place. God gives us time, and he wants us to make it holy. God gives us money, and he wants us to make it holy. God gives us materialism, and he wants us to make it spiritual. But let's take it even a step further. When we look at these three mitzvahs, they're over here telling us the three different ideas in Judaism. Many ask, is Judaism capitalist or socialist? Does Judaism believe that every man for his own, or we need to take care of each other? And the answer is both. Judaism believes that every single person needs to help each other. In an ideal utopia world, everybody should be equal. But what happens when you have equal? Nobody works. Nobody puts their wherewithal. Judaism understands, Torah sees that we deal with the world and there's an ego. And if we don't give the person something for what they've accomplished and we take from what they had and give it to somebody else, then why should they work for it? So therefore, there has to be different levels. But at the same time, Judaism says, you that a God is blessed with more have an obligation to help one that God has given less. So we have the sabbatical year, which tells us, you know what, you worked for 6 years, you were a capitalist, but now there's a seventh year socialist, everybody's the same. You have the Jubilee year, you feel belong to you, you make purchases back and forth, but now there's the stop. You have the concept of interest. You've earned money. You want to be able to make a good buck. So you're going to loan it to the person on interest, and you're going to make it easy. Quick money. But what's the other guy going to do? He's going to suffer. How is he going to pay so much interest? Therefore, God says no interest. You made money, God blessed you, now help somebody else who's less fortunate. But the mitzvah of interest goes even further than that. Think of it. If you make an investment, you're a partner. What happens if the business goes down? You lose the money as well. But if you charge somebody money and loan them money on interest, whether that guy makes money or loses money, you will forever get paid your interest. You don't have any skin in the game. You made your money. Over here, God says that's not allowed. That is not allowed because God tells us we have an obligation. Our obligation is to make sure that everything we do is sanctified and made holy. That we involve ourselves with every penny and every dollar that God blessed us with. And making interest means I'm leaving myself. I'm relieving from my responsibility of sanctifying it. I'm letting it happen on its own. God is telling us, in the heart of the Torah, the care that we need to care for one another and make sure that we are there for another. That if God blessed us with material prosperity, we need to make sure to share it with others. But at the same time, to utilize what God has given us and appreciate the blessings that God has given us and make sure to spend it wisely making sure your investment is something you're continuously involved with, making sure it is utilized for making this world a beautiful place. Realizing and recognizing the value of time, money, and effort. It shouldn't just be a wasteful effort, a wasteful time that is involved in mortal things, but sanctify them, make them holy, dedicate them to God, utilize it for helping another person, utilize it for a spiritual purpose. You become holy. Your money becomes holy. Your time becomes holy. This world becomes holy. And collectively, we make a holy place. Recognizing the value of time. Recognizing and realizing that time is everything, because it's everything that we have to do to make this world a holy place. Thank you for listening. Looking forward to spending some time with you again tomorrow. Lunch break with the Rabbi at 1 p.m. God bless you and have a wonderful day.